Let's face it, real estate prices in Canada are absolutely insane. And while there's some out there who say that we're going to go back to 2019 prices, I think they're kind of delusional. There is a sentiment that the market is going through a major correction. Not completely wrong, but are we really going back to 2019 prices, or are we completely fucked? Here's the truth. Not as much damage as the silent generation did with their silence or the boomers with their noise, but here we are. We've got millennials grinding, Gen X's spectating, and Gen Z is watching it all burn to the damn ground and trying to scrape down enough money just for rent. Sound about right? And now we're birthing Gen Beta, believe it or not, which is absolutely insane, into the biggest affordability collapse in Canadian history. The name fits because, well, unless something changes, we're raising a beta generation of economic bystanders in a game they have no way to win, no chance, no with how. So we're going to ask 3 uncomfortable questions today that I don't know if you'll know the answer to, but we're going to do our very best. Number 1 is, how did we arrive at this completely fucked destination? How long will we be stuck here? And of course, more importantly, will there be a way out for the generations ahead and the current generations to get back into this generation we're in right now? Let's get right into it. Welcome to The Flow, Real Estate and Money Show, a show focused on helping Canadians understand the different elements of real estate, mortgage, and finance. The goal of our show is to provide Canadians with the tools, information, and knowledge to have more success when it comes to their investing and real estate related decisions going forward. My name is Alex McFadden, and I'm your host. I can't wait to get you into the flow. So, how did we arrive at this most effed up destination that we're in right now? We started to redefine and are redefining what is affordable. Let's explain. CMHC and OSFI, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, has a love with the 4.5x income rule. So that's 4.5 times your income. This is basically how it works. The median income in Vancouver in 2019 was approximately $90,000. So what was considered affordable back then was approximately $405,000. And the real average price point for a single family home at that time in, let's say, the Greater Vancouver area, or for a very large townhome, was $1.011 million. That's not quite $450,000, folks. And that's 2.5x what the affordability metric is. That's insane. And doesn't look like there's a fix in sight. So let's talk about how it got there and why we're there in the first place. You cannot call a $1 million home affordable unless you're pitching it to a dual 6-figure income family. But that is the new home. And that's not affordable. That's exclusive. And that's why we're in the place that we're in right now. So let's break down some of the math to understand exactly what this looks like. In 2019, let's break down exactly what it would have looked like if you were to purchase a entry-level townhome in Vancouver. So the price point for a median townhome in Vancouver in 2019 was around $1.011 million. You would have to put 20% down, which meant you needed $180,000 of income, which is almost 2 6-figure incomes, or 1 6-figure plus a secondary income just to get into the marketplace, plus the $202,000. I don't know about you, but not a lot of people buying their first home that have $200,000 plus unless they're getting significant gifts, which some people are. Now, if you were to look forward to today in what people are considering to be a more affordable market, let's be honest, even with wage growth being relatively significant, your income requirement would have to be at least 20% more to get a comparable property at the current median price points. But what's even scarier, if we were to use a similar price point for a relatively similar property, so we're talking basically over $150,000 higher price point at 1.177 versus 1.011, you can now do 10% down, which means your affordability has somewhat gone up because you can put less down or you can get in the market easier. But the flip side to that is, the reality is you, if I was to use the exact same qualification guidelines, your income would have to be nearly 15 to 20% higher, depending on the strata fees and the taxes for the same unit, at over $200,000, which is 2 6-figure incomes just to get into a relatively livable home in Vancouver. Like, think about that for a second. 2 6-figure salaries with to get the ability to get into a townhome in Vancouver. And if you call that affordable, the word affordable has completely lost its meaning in my mind. Now, let's talk about what CMHC is seeing in their report. They're suggesting that housing starts are below 2021 levels, even with our population surging past 41 million. And we're with governments that have been telling us year over year, they know there's a supply crisis. They know they're going to fix homes. Well, nationally, they built 280,000 units annualized, which is only 220,000 units lower than what the suggested 500,000 units of CMHC was. Like, are you kidding me? In Vancouver, single family homes are at 20-year starts. And if I had to guess, this would probably be the same in most other areas of the country. First of all, we need to double the housing starts. And the reality is, second of all, we slash them. And on top of that, we slash the wrong types of homes. So we've got some serious issues on our hands. So that's how we arrived where we are right now. So number two here is, well, what are we doing about it? And why isn't the government spending more time fixing the freaking problem? Let's break down some numbers here. The foreign buyer, quote unquote, boogeyman. Y'all remember this? 2016, it was everywhere in the news and the media. The foreign buyers are what's creating these price increases. That's what's happening right now. We need to stop the foreign buyers. That's the big problem. Well, in 2016, the BC government instituted a 15% tax on foreign buyers, and then they increased that up to 20%. Well, how many buyers in the overall marketplace were foreign? Well, at the time, less than 5%. Drop in the bucket. Well, what happened to prices at that time when they put that tax in? They went back up. They kept going up. They did not go down. You see, guys, taxing doesn't actually work. Crazy thing, right? In 2023, they instituted the foreign buyers ban. Now, zero tax revenue, which means as much as we might say taxing doesn't work, at least there's something coming in. The reality is they weren't the ones that caused the price increases, obviously. We have zero tax revenue, less people backing all of these projects that are going on. For whatever you agree or disagree, we have less money flowing into our country and stalled construction everywhere. Again, you can argue about the whys and the hows, but those are the facts. Those are them facts, guys. So instead of possibly taxing the investment and using it to fund maybe more supply of the right type of product for Canadian citizens, well, we banned the people who were funding the supply in the first place. My guess is, well, they probably weren't using the money towards the right causes anyways. So does it matter? Well, kind of, yes, because they could and they should. And if we had the right people running the show, then maybe they would. Second thing, we had significant lending crackdowns. Now, this goes all the way back to before some of y'all were even born. But post 2008, lending got tightened over and over and over. Remember the 2008 collapse? Maybe some of you remember, maybe some more vividly than others. That was in the States. And the reaction in Canada was a reaction to what happened down there, but it didn't necessarily directly impact us, and definitely not to the extent that it did in the United States. So what did the government do? Well, they cut down amortizations from 40 years to 25. Not the worst thing. I don't know that I think 40-year amortizations on an insured 5% down mortgage is a great idea, but to 25, that was a significant change. And then what did they do? They raised up the minimum down payment requirements. And then what did they do? They introduced a stress test, even when rates are rising. So we didn't stop a housing crisis. We just basically said, y'all first-time buyers, we're going to completely lock y'all out of the generation care of signed by boomers. We're not going to give you the money. Sorry. And you're not going to buy at all. And while that didn't necessarily compute into people not being able to buy, it definitely hurt a lot of people from being able to get in the marketplace. The other major thing that happened, well, permits. We've heard about permits. And you can argue whether supply is really the issue here. I'm not going to argue with you. But there are a lot of expenses leading to why price points are higher and nothing was getting built. I mean, seriously, we have to look at our city and ask ourselves a question. Why does it take 5 years for a development permit to take place? Approvals went from 1 to 3 years in almost every major city in Canada. Labor shortages growing all across the place. We're not filling the gaps for the construction that we're looking for. What does an electrician make right now? $120 per hour. And I'm not saying that they're not worth it, by the way. But let's be honest here. We went from $30 an hour to $120 an hour at bill rate. And a lot of that is because of scarcity. There's just not enough people that are in the trade. And the ones that are don't necessarily want to do construction anymore, right? We're also seeing material costs. I mean, we went up 20 to 30% from pre-COVID. Crazy, right? Cost to build new units, $1,450 per square foot. I could almost puke saying that. Like I'm reading my notes here. That's not profitable unless prices go up, and especially if pre-sales go down. See, nobody builds if it takes 10 years. Another reason that we're not seeing the building that we might see otherwise. And $20 million in holding costs, there's nobody left to buy. There are so few people out there, which is, and this is for a Ford podcast video that I'm going to do, one of the big reasons why Canada is being turned into a nation of renters and why many large corporations are coming and buying up blocks of land because they get it. They're the only ones who can do it anymore. So here's the big question you're asking. How long will be stuck in this place? How much longer are we going to be sitting in this current environment? CMHC is giving us some hope in their forecast. They say housing starts may slightly rebound in 2026 if inflation stays down, interest rates stabilize, and municipalities finally deal with their permitting issues. It's a lot of things that have to go right. And all of those things are not likely to go right unless there is some insane aggressive coordination with some serious incentives. The housing market just doesn't fix itself, guys. There needs to be a clear plan and someone working on the plan. And I'm sorry to say it for all who love the red out there. I'm not playing sides, but I don't think manufactured homes are the answer. Clearly, they've proven not to be already based on the reception. Number two, the idea of the rent versus the own market is breaking. Rental rates, yes, they've come down in some cities from the extreme highs, but overall, they're still going up. And if you look at it over the extended period of time, they're going up just as fast as house prices. So in Vancouver, an average 2-bed rent right now, $3,350 per month. It's crazy, but it's cheaper than buying on paper, right? But still completely inaccessible for most people, inaccessible. And this creates a permanent nation or underclass or city of renters, especially new Canadians, students, and young families, particularly those who aren't coming from money, who do not have the option of a gift. Basically, what we're doing, and I'm not telling you people that you can't do this. I am not saying that. There are ways to make this happen. I see people doing it every single day that can get into the marketplace. There have to be sacrifices. But I do want to say this, is that our country is basically creating a generation that will never build equity. They'll never have a home that they can call their own and care enough. And whatever reason, most people are acting like it's a big surprise. Oh, wow, this housing situation has gotten really bad, hasn't it? And the only people who are saying that are people who are trying to get into the housing market right now that are struggling to do so. People who have it, who've owned for 30 years, well, they're laughing pretty, unless they lose their home or get divorced. And then they're sitting here saying, wow, this isn't very good, right? Not ideal. So other thoughts on how long we'll be here? Investors, we pigeonhole them as bad. Okay, speculation, maybe not good. I agree. That's not investing. That's speculation. So I'm going to spread out the difference between speculators and investors. And so when I think investors, I think someone who is adding value to the economy, they're giving people a place to rent, and they're capitalizing on the market opportunities. Nothing wrong with that. We need those people. Individual investors, the family, the mom and pop investor, who is basically the backbone of our society as it relates to real estate, they're getting squeezed out by interest rates. They're not the bad guys. Interest rates, insurance, strata fees, property taxes keep going up. Guess what? Rent goes down. Not going to keep doing this anymore. Get invested into something else. What about those institutional and foreign investors I explained to you before? Well, the foreign investors, they gone. They're not interested. 20% taxes, you're banned. You're a bad guy, right? Institutional, you're disincentivized. We don't want you to be any part of this country. That's a pre-sale funding pool. Those are the guys that are funding the units that future families are going to live in virtually every single condo tower in Canada, not just BC. So if nobody wants to front the money to build real estate and where the cranes come from, then who will? I don't know. I don't think the investor's the bad guy here. I think there's other issues to look at it. Big question everybody's asking here. Is there a way out? How do we get out of this? Number one, simple. I don't care if you think supply is not the issue. It kind of is. We need to streamline permits. We need to make it much simpler for municipalities who hold the key literally to be able to offer permits in shorter timelines. Toronto is 1,000 days for multifamily. Are you kidding me? Vancouver, 3 years. Get that down significantly. Get it to 6 months. Make it simple. Make it straightforward. If this is a priority, like they say it is, then show it. Make it a priority. There is zero reason this should take this long. And I know multiple people that have gone through this specific experience, and I can tell you there's no reasonable way this should ever happen. Why don't we adopt technology? Maybe AI, maybe a workflow, maybe a CRM, maybe somebody who gives a crap about making things more efficient in our government. We don't need this many reasons not to move forward. I'm not talking about taking away jobs. I'm talking about making it better. Because if we make it better, there'll be more people, and more people can then do the work. How about this? Let's welcome back the foreign capital that we need. Sure, tax it if it makes sense to do so, but ditch the ban. Why don't we replace it with a graduated tax, some kind of a tax that goes directly into housing, and ensure that it does, and provide some kind of proof that this is the case. Yeah, what a crazy idea, right? What about if we gave the investors that are the mom and pop investors some level of certainty? Why don't we give them incentives to provide rental supply? See, my thoughts on this is that we all look at these quote unquote investors as bad guys. They're not bad people. Come on. They're everyday people like you and I. The only difference is that either A, they weren't taught about how to do it correctly, or maybe in many cases they did do it right and they just got caught in the middle. And now everybody's calling them bad guys. You don't need to love investors. You don't need to. But you kind of need their money to be able to get the house. You cannot have one versus the other. You want pretty streets? Pay property taxes. You want sidewalks? Pay property taxes. I was sitting down for dinner with my friend the other day who was from in Nashville, and he explained to me how the communities are basically, if you're rich, you live over here behind fences. And behind fences, they have sidewalks because they pay fees and taxes to be able to have these sidewalks and streetlights. In an area like where he lives, which is considered middle class, ain't no streetlights, ain't no sidewalks, ain't nothing. You got to pay for it yourself. Think about this, folks. We pay. Let's make sure that we take care of our people who are actually putting money into the government. All right, number 3, tie immigration to the housing targets. What a crazy idea. We bring in 500,000 people. Let's make sure we have 250,000 homes. Holy crap. What if we coordinated? And we built 500,000 units annually to avoid this collapse? And what about if we did this with the right type of real estate that people actually want to live in? Crazy idea. Oh, what if we incentivized people to come to our country who have these trade skills so that we don't have a constant lack of people who can build the units that we want? What if we were working on immigration that was focused on bringing in people that had the skills that we needed to build the homes that we need for them to live here? Maybe an idea, right? What about this? Number 4, let's redefine affordability for reality. Come on. You can use the CMHC 4 times gross income rule if you want. Publish it, make sure it's there, make sure the government cites it, expose the lie of the $1 million home. But the reality is, I think we just need to provide clarity so that our government can work towards some level of affordability. If we can agree on what that level of affordability truly is, don't you agree we'd have a target to get there? If we have a goal, and we're committed to that goal, and we speak the goal, we're more likely to get closer to that goal. So I'm going to wake up Gen Z or Gen X or whatever Gen you are, millennials that haven't gotten the market right now or want to get in the market. The game that you're inheriting, it's rigged. It's not about high prices. It's about a refusal to fix what's actually broken. If you're pissed off, good, but don't just rant on YouTube or podcasts or Spotify or whatever. Stop just messaging on the Reddit boards. Do something about it. Push your cities. Talk to your MLA. Use your vote. Because I'll tell you this one thing. I hope y'all leave a message in the comments or send me a note on Instagram at themortgagepug. But here's the thing. That's not going to fix anything. If you think this is a problem, you need to step up and vote. Because the truth is, housing will continue to remain unaffordable forever and onwards until the people who are stuck out get loud enough. And that will be the difference between getting into the marketplace. If you found this podcast or this video helpful, useful, leave a thumbs up. If you agree with this content, drop me a comment in the YouTube video, or if you're listening on Spotify, comment section, or if you want to hit me up on Instagram directly, the mortgage pug. Yep, the dog, the mortgage pug. If you're looking for more information or mortgage advice, love to help you out of the team. Talk to y'all soon.